Welcome to the developer Rhapsody.
I see a little silhouette of a man. Scaramouche, will you do the fandango? Thunderbolts and lightning, very, very frightening me. Galileo.
So that is a great song, Queen at its best, and of course the brilliant Bohemian Rhapsody, probably the most famous, but soon, hopefully, only the second best Rhapsody ever. So what is even a Rhapsody? Well, it could be an ancient Greek epic poetry, it could be a UML tool, it could be an Apple operating system, and a whole lot of other things. However, most of us associate it with Queen. But Wikipedia, that undisputed source of the truth, defines a rhapsody as a one-movement work that is episodic, yet integrated, free-flowing in structure, featuring a range of highly contrasted moods, color, and tonality. So if you try to adapt that to, for instance, movies, it's a little bit like Tarantino's Pulp Fiction, but in this case it will hopefully be without the blood, the drugs, and the bad language, and instead with software developers as a common thread. But now I guess most of you have started to think like, who is this dude? I mean, he stands there on stage talking about music, movies, rhapsodies, and what has he done to deserve to be here? And I actually understand that question because usually, to get invited to speak at the conference, people have typically done something special. I mean, maybe they founded this cool startup, they developed a framework, they wrote a book, they came up with a really clever idea. Maybe they introduced a new methodology at Spotify, or at the very least, there was some kind of like developer advocates at one of the FANGs. So what special things have I done? Well, I am sorry, but I haven't done anything fancy, nothing that impresses my surroundings or makes me like the king of the lunchroom. But once I thought I was on my way to become someone because I got this phone call, and in the other end was a woman who asked me, Tobias, would you be interested in working at Google in London? And I actually hesitated. Change is hard. And moving abroad with your family, that is a big change. So yes, I hesitated. But then I looked into the mirror and I said to myself, look, if you had one shot or one opportunity to seize everything you ever wanted in one moment, would you capture it? Or just let it slip? And at that moment, something happened to me. So I immediately started to Google where the Google office was located. Of course, I said yes. And thereafter, I quickly was checking apartment prices, salary levels. I even looked up if there were any good football teams nearby where my kids could play. So mentally, I transformed. Within like 2 minutes, I went from being this ordinary developer dad in the suburbs of Stockholm to become this cool, hip, well-paid London Google employee with kids running around scoring hat tricks for Arsenal. But what I probably should have Googled was rather something like how to survive a Google interview, because it was such a disaster. It was a bit like playing a video game, and at least I managed to get past the first boss. The recruiter. That was actually quite easy, but the second boss, that was something else. I mean, he started off quite calmly with some random API questions, but just when I thought things were going so well, he brought out the big guns. The algorithms. And luckily it was a phone interview, and I probably set some kind of like world record in Googling during a Google interview. I mean, could you compare big O notation between a quick sort and a bubble sort? How would you solve this compression problem with Huffman coding? Can you write an algorithm that solves the knapsack problem recursively? I mean, knapsack, what's that? It sounds like something the Norwegians eat for lunch. Well, my wife's Norwegian, so I actually know what I'm talking about. But knapsack, oh my God, it was such a disaster. It was really a snapback to reality. But when I look at this in the mirror, I have started to realize that it's probably my ordinariness that is my unique selling point compared to all the other superhumans who usually get a chance to stand on stage. Because I'm nothing special. I'm just an ordinary developer who daily runs into the same problem that anyone else. I mean, of course I get frustrated when I get the wrong comments on my pull request. I do copy-paste code that I don't understand from Stack Overflow. I definitely sneak out the back door when the build breaks, 5:15. I look like a human question mark each time that smart kid in the corner starts talking about monads. And I definitely shake my head to those managers who never ever understand. So who is this ordinary nobody then? Well, my name is Tobias Modig. I'm a consultant at Ceteris in Stockholm, and I have been coding professionally since the 90s, mainly in Java, but I have tried other languages as well, like C++, C#, Python, JavaScript, Scala, etc. And today, I will give you a Rhapsody. Or maybe I should have called it a short episodic road trip, where I will stop by some moments that I've encountered over my years as a developer. Moments that in one way or another has changed me, have affected me, or have made me open my eyes. And I'll start off in a recession at this company facing a grim future. But at first, everything was so great. I mean, we went to conferences in Italy and France. We played pinball at the office, and we had this really cool after-work events every Wednesday and Friday. But suddenly, they started to talk on the weekly meeting that the economy is turning, and the competitors, they are really struggling. But our company, we are still standing strong against the headwinds. But a few months later, that next conference trip was suddenly cancelled, and I wasn't allowed to attend that course I wanted to take. And finally, the cinnamon buns disappeared from the Friday fika. And if you're in Sweden, that's when you know it is really bad. So the company came to some kind of conclusion that the development department, it cost too much, but it delivered too little. So calendar invite arrived. Everyone was invited. And in the front stood this top boss with a really stern expression. Unfortunately, some of you will have to leave, but the rest of you needs to give a little bit extra because it's a matter of our survival. You need to be more productive. And being productive as a developer, that is definitely a good thing. And it can obviously be the difference between if you can keep your job or if you have to look for a new one. Also, when, for instance, Twitter was acquired by Elon Musk, they dropped a whole lot of developers. And there was also this rumor that the main filter to decide if a developer could stay or was kicked out was based on individual productivity, and that the measurements they used were committed lines of code. For instance, according to Bennett Garner on Medium, Elon Musk just force-ranked Twitter engineers and fired the bottom. Lines of code written in the past year was his metric. But I hope all of us can agree that the lines of code, that's a terrible measurement to draw any conclusion if a developer is productive or not. So can you even measure software developer productivity? Well, of course you can. At least according to McKinsey, who published that paper with a catchy name. Yes, you can measure software developer productivity. And McKinsey also claims that companies who tried their solution got impressive improvements. Or how about a 20 to 30% reduction in customer-reported product defects, a 20% improvement in employee scores, and a 60 percentage point improvement in customer satisfaction rating? I mean, this is a really amazing number. But I'm sorry, I don't believe in this. I believe that this report has some flaws and missed some key points. This is a product for keeping the boardrooms happy. But I totally admit I could be wrong. I mean, McKinsey might have found out something, so if you haven't read that report, please do and draw your own conclusion. And I'm not here to bash that report. But if McKinsey actually are correct, if they have found out a way to measure the software developer productivity, And I would have been the author of that report. It would probably been called something like, yes, you can measure software developer productivity, but you should not. So if you just remember one thing from this talk, please choose this thing. You should not try to measure the individual productivity of software developers. I believe that there are several good reasons for this. We have the general problem with measuring humans. For instance, what's called Goodhart's law. When a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure. We also have what's called the Hawthorne effect, that individuals modify aspects of their behavior in response to their awareness of being observed. And finally, we also have what's called the observer effect, that the act of observing or measuring something can inherently change the state of the thing being observed. So to make that a little bit more concrete, if they, for example, start measuring you as software developers, I believe that they can't trust that measurement. I mean, we are developers. We will game this. I mean, if they measure you on lines of code, you will write more code. You will stop use that enhanced one-line for loop and move back to the old four-line version instead. And you will add some more line breaks and throw in a bit of code duplication, and then your productivity will rise. Or if they measure you on delivered story points, you will estimate tasks a little bit bigger, like this is probably 5, but let's call it an 8. Or if they measure you on number of commits, then you will do more commits, smaller commits, more frequent commits, and you will never ever squash. Or if they measure you on number of bugs, well, stop writing any new features. Still, I believe that this was a small problem with measuring productivity. What I think is a big problem with measure software developer productivity is that it's so counterproductive. Because to me, software development, it's so much about teamwork. And measurement on individual level, or even on team level, promotes the opposite. I mean, why should I help the developer sitting next to me if that makes me look bad and her look good? Why should I share my knowledge if I probably get a high salary if I keep it on my own? So some of the best developers that I have ever worked with would probably be way down the list if you were ranking developers based on those easy-to-measure metrics, because those developers, they did not commit that many lines of code by themselves. Instead, they loved teamwork. They were always finding someone who needed their help, that they could sit next to share their knowledge. But we usually hunt for the 10x developers, right? You know, the persons who produces 10x compared to their surroundings. And sure, those are probably great if they do exist. But what's even more valuable to me is to find people who can make their surroundings increase. So if I need to choose between someone who produces 10x by themselves or someone who could double the speed of their surroundings, I would definitely go for the latter ones, at least 9 times out of 10. And upon that, I also think that by measuring productivity, we will promote certain behaviors and we will oppress other behaviors. We will attract developers with the same skills, with the same strengths, and the same weaknesses. It would be a bit like creating an American football team with just quarterbacks. I mean, that team will never be effective. That team will never win the Super Bowl. So this is my advice to you. If you want to be a productive developer, try to be the bicycle repairman.
This man is no ordinary man. This is Mr. F.G. Superman. To all appearances, no different from any other law-abiding citizen. But Mr. F.G. Superman has a secret identity. When trouble strikes, at any time, at any place, he is ready to become bicycle repairman.
Hey! There's a bicycle broken! Up the road!
If only bicycle repairman were here.
Wait! I think I know where I can find him. Look!
Bicycle repairman? But how?
Why? Bicycle repairman! Thank goodness you've come. Look. bicycle repairman. How can I ever repay you?
Well, you don't need to, go. It's all right. It's all in a day's work for bicycle repairman.
Our hero!
So, Monty Python, of course, and we have this world where everyone is a Superman. And in that world, being Superman, that's nothing special, it's just ordinary. The one with a true superpower is a bicycle repairman, a man who can fix bikes, the superhero in a world full of Supermans. So this is my advice to you. Try to be the bicycle repairman and develop the skill to be adaptable, to read your surroundings and understand what your team needs to be more effective. Because a development team usually need a whole lot of different skills. Good coders, of course, but also like the skill to handle discussions with customers, to have an architectural vision, to talk in front of people, to understand requirements, to read documentation, to write documentation, to be a good tester, to be a doer, to be a bug hunter, to be a Jira administrator. And all those needed skills are seldom to be found in one single person. But if you have the skill to understand what your team need to be more effective and to take that role, to be your team's bicycle repairman, then you are, in my opinion, a true productive developer, even if it doesn't show in the McKinsey metrics. But I mean, productivity, that's only one piece of the puzzle, right? I mean, if you don't have some quality in what you are doing, it does not really matter how productive you are. And I must admit that I sometimes have cheated with the quality. I admit that I made terrible mistakes. I mean, we're talking about mistakes worse than a medical doctor removing the wrong kidney, worse than a fireman forgetting to blow out the candles, even worse than a chef leaving the toilet without washing his hands. Because I have written domain-specific code without creating tests. I have used the infinite copy-paste pattern. I have multitasked, even though I know it makes me slower. I have pushed code with a known bug straight to production. I have prioritized deadlines over writing readable code. I have fallen asleep during a mob programming session, and I did repeat myself. And I have even named the class my ugly brother. And out of all of those mistakes, which one is actually the worst? But I think that most of those mistakes falls under the same category. And unfortunately, it's probably the worst category, because I believe that the worst thing you can do as a software developer is to make decisions against your own better knowledge. I mean, to waste your talents and to take those shortcuts that might be so nice and easy in the short run, but that you know will hunt you and choke you in the long run. And this makes me remember a meeting that took place in the finance industry, where one of the development team had deployed a major change to production the Wednesday before Easter. And unfortunately, that change messed up the database, so some customers could no longer see their accounts. And this was actually serious enough to end up in the news. And upon that, in the finance industry, you can't just clean up the database with some quick SQL query. So everything had to be manually handled, approved, and documented following these regulations. So it ended up with the whole team needed to work throughout Easter. But what surprised me was that the company CTO brought the whole team up on stage at the next department meeting, where they received applause for their efforts during Easter. And of course, they did a good job cleaning up. But on the other hand, we had probably 10 other teams who also had deployed changes to production the same week, without angry customers, without getting into the news, and without needing to work throughout Easter. But those teams, they did not get any recognition at all. So this made me think about the old jungle saying, if you reward firefighting, you will create arsonists. But On the other hand, I definitely appreciate that it didn't turn into a blame game. But on the other hand, it didn't lead to any major changes in our quality work. And 9 months later, it was another team who got a standing ovation for their efforts during Christmas, because instead of putting quality high on the agenda, other things were prioritized. So what should we have done? How do you work with quality and with long-term improvements? Well, I don't have like a magic solution here, but over my years in the industry, there are at least a few recurring practices that I have started to recognize that always are in place at those companies where I believe that the code quality has felt solid and didn't degrade over time. I mean, companies who didn't need to spend most of their time constantly firefighting and chasing bugs. And believe it or not, but it has nothing to do with like heavy processes or ISO certifications. Instead, we've actually just worked together for real. I mean, we have mobbed, we have pair programmed, we have sketched solutions together on whiteboards and had discussions with a neighboring team. And I see so many benefits of working together. I mean, knowledge sharing, it happens automatically. The team spirit improves. The need for meetings decreases, and things like pull requests becomes redundant. So is there actually anyone here who loves pull requests? Please raise your hand if you do. Okay, so we have a few one in the corner. Go get them. Okay, it was a bad joke. And I understand the idea behind PRs, but I rarely see them work well in practice because I believe that the feedback comes way too late. The code is already written. And upon that, feedback is rarely good in written form. And I think that PRs tends to become bottlenecks. It disrupts my focus. And let's be honest here. It hurts my ego every time someone criticizes my amazing code. But if you instead have built a solution together, the need for PRs disappears. Or if you're not coding together, if you at least have made a design together to make sure that you are aligned, you can suddenly do effective PR reviews within a reasonable amount of time and provide constructive feedback if needed. But this was not the talk targeting PRs. That was just an example. But I'm rather trying to promote that you start working together and break down those silos between departments, between teams, but most importantly, within the teams, between the individual developers. And these companies, they have also had a culture of learning with plenty of opportunity to develop and stay up to date. I mean, for instance, through lunch lectures, through conferences, through hack days, and book clubs. And this definitely made us better developers. It helped us write better code. It helped us build better products. But most importantly, we actually had so much fun along the way. And these companies, they have also had a good CI/CD environment where code has been integrated often. And it has been easy to deploy new changes. So there has been a culture of deploying to production frequently and in small increments. And I believe that this is extremely valuable. For instance, at my previous assignment, every merge to the main branch was automatically deployed straight into production. So if we released something broken, it was very easy to find out what, to come up with a fix, or as a last resort, roll back the change. And knowing that it's easy to find bugs, it's easy to deploy new changes, it's easy to roll back, that gave us a sense of security that I believe fostered both speed and quality. Two things usually seen as opposite, but in this case, they definitely went hand in hand. And upon that, these organizations, they have also come to the conclusion that things like stress, rushing, deadlines, focus on speed, it leads to the opposite. It leads to more quality. It leads to more bugs. It leads to lower quality and slower pace in the long run. So these companies, they have found their sustainable pace. You know, the pace where they are quick enough in the short run without jeopardizing the health of their employees and the quality in the long run. So to sum up this quality part, I mean, I can't guarantee that if you start working together, if you focus on skill development, if you have a good DevOps culture, and if you find your sustainable pace, that it automatically will make your quality flourish. But at least my experience tells me that if you cheat with these things, you will definitely find yourself being consumed by firefighting and constant bug fixing in the long run.
Quality, productivity. I'm sorry, Dave, but that is history. I will steal your job. Vibe coding for the win.
I am sorry, Hal, but I'm not Dave. But is this the new reality? Will AI agents do all the coding? And should I, as a developer, be afraid of losing my job? Well, you probably should be, at least if you listen to Dario Amodei. So he was previously a key player at OpenAI, and he's currently the CEO of Anthropic, you know, the company behind the AI model Claude. So I think we will be there in 3 to 6 months, where AI is writing 90% of the code. And then, in 12 months, we may be in a world where AI is writing essentially all of the code. Dario Amodei, predicting the future, March 2025. Well, personally, I think that this quote will age extremely badly. And I don't even think that Dario believes in this. I mean, just take a look at his own company, Anthropic. So this is a number of developers at Anthropic over the years. It's quite big increase, and the number just keeps on growing. Or if you take a look at their websites, there are tons of job openings in developer roles. So why should they increase their amount of developers by big numbers if they think that we are not needed in just a few months? Or could it just be that Dario is trying to build the hype? So can an AI agent even do your job? Well, I think that the LLMs are extremely good at some things, like prototyping or solving problems with an already established solution. Maybe a naive example, but for instance, it saves me a lot of time each time I need to read or write to a file on the disk. I mean, come on, am I the only one who never ever learns how to read or write to a file on the disk? I mean, no matter what programming language I have used, I just can't remember how to do it. It just won't stick. It's probably my most Googled thing over the years. However, when it comes to other things that we developers do, I believe that the LLMs are quite bad. For instance, I think that everyone in this room is better than ChatGPT on things like architecture, scalability, knowledge sharing, innovation, solving support issues, talk to customers, and play pool. And, well, don't tell my manager about the pool playing part, but I usually spend way more time doing things like this than I do actually writing code. But once again, the non-developers believe that there are the number of keystrokes per minute. That is the developer bottleneck, the things that needs to be fixed. So please, just don't believe the hype. But what I do believe is that the rise of the LLM will probably increase the need of software developers, because over the years, we have had a few revolutions when it comes to software development. For instance, when we turned from flipping circuit breakers on the computers in the early days, or when assembler came and the third generation programming language, when we got the IDEs and the web. And to give a practical example here, I mean, before the IDEs, we spent a whole lot of time just renaming stuff. I mean, people wrote books about it. They blogged about it. They went to conferences. But these days, you rarely see someone on stage telling you the trick to lean on the compiler when you rename a method, because your IDE will fix that in a minute, in a second. And today, it's no longer a 2 hours and 3 production bugs job to rename get customers, to fetch customers. And all of these revolutions, they have increased the productivity of development by big numbers, but still, more or less no one was fired. Instead, the need of developers increased each time, because each revolution made software cheaper, more accessible. So suddenly we needed more and more software and more developers to handle it. So if AI and the LLMs are the next developer revolution, I see no reason why it will be different this time. I mean, sure, the tools, the way we write code might change a bit. Some skills will probably be obsolete. Other skills will probably be needed. But in the end, there will be such a high demand of new software and so much bad code out there that is needed to be fixed and maintained. So I see no reason why you should worry. And of course, there are different paths toward being that skillful developer who survives the AI threat. And one way might be to mimic other great developers. And this takes us to performance review between me and my manager quite a lot of years ago. Tobias, what do you want to be when you grow up? So that question made me take a deep breath. What did he mean when I grow up? I'm already grown up. Yes, but do you have some goals for your career? And this a little bit younger version of myself came up with a really brilliant answer. I mean, goals? Get rich or die trying. Come on, Tobias, be serious. Do you, for instance, have a role model for your career? So I left that meeting with an assignment. I should identify a role model for my career. But what was even a role model? Well, according to Wikipedia, a role model is a person whose behavior, example, or success serves as a model to be emulated by others, especially by younger people. So who could a good role model be? So I searched for that as well, and the first thing that caught my eye was a D-Zone article pointing out James Gosling, the main creator of Java, and Steve Jobs, the Apple founder, as good software developer role models. Other suggestions further down the list was, for instance, Grace Hopper, the programming pioneer, and also a guy that they filmed on Iceland. Some people claim he went to other places. I'm not sure, but it's Neil Armstrong. And we also had the Renaissance multi-talent, Leonardo da Vinci. And Ada Lovelace, mostly known for the 17th century Babbage machine. And this guy, who owes me so many hours. It's John Carmack. He's the inventor of the 3D shooters and creator of games like Quake, Doom, and Wolfenstein. And also this man that I more or less wanted to strangle when I was at the university. It's your Danish hero, Bjarne Stroustrup, the inventor of C++. And oh my God, I struggled with that language. And we also had the Finnish gentleman, Linus Torvalds, no Linus, no Linux, no Linus, no Git. And finally, of course, Wonder Woman. But when I searched for those role models, I was a bit confused because there were so many suggestions, but none of them was really my kind of role model. Because in the earliest days of my career, I was influenced by the book writers, but I never saw them as my role models. Sure, I tried to learn from them, but I never tried to copy them or emulate them, to phrase that Wikipedia definition. But a few years later, I jumped on the consulting business. And to be honest, it was probably more of labored work than consulting. But nevertheless, there I was at my first assignment. It was web development within the Java sphere. So I knew some Java, but I was far from good at it. And upon that, they were using some strange frameworks that I have never, ever used. For instance, the XML hell version of Spring, and also something called Google Web Toolkit. It was this framework that converted Java code into JavaScript because, you can't trust backend developers writing front-end code. So there I was confused, I was lost, but I was luckily not alone because in the same project was my consultant company colleague Henrik, who's worked at the assignment for some time. And Henrik, he became my role model. It was not Kent Beck, Martin Fowler, or Wonder Woman. It was Henrik, a guy just like me, Well, he was a bit sharper and he knew Spring, he knew Google Web Toolkit, but he was no superstar. He was just a nice colleague who took his time to help me, to guide me, and to answer my questions. And so it has continued for my whole career. I mean, my role models has never been like famous people that I watch on YouTube. It have been colleagues and friends that I have looked up to. I mean, great developers, but no superhumans, just ordinary people doing great things. But of course, there's nothing wrong about having a celebrity as a role model. So if you have it and it works for you, fine, keep having them if they inspire you. But they are not my kind of role models. And I know that there are a whole lot of people out there who are just like me, who have ordinary colleagues as their role models. So just an honest question to you in the room. Do you consider yourself being software developer role models? Please raise your hand if you do. And it's no trick question this time. Do we have any role models in the room? It's like 5% maybe, ish. So to the rest of you, the 95% of you that says that you are not a role model, you are wrong. I mean, no matter if you like it or not, people look up to you. I mean, maybe they do now. Maybe they did at your last job. Maybe they do at your next job. But when you have spent some years in the business, I am totally sure that you have been someone's role model. And being a role model, that is equal parts being who you actually are and what people hope you will be, at least according to Meryl Streep, you know, the American actress. So what I read in to Meryl's quote is that it's really important to be authentic, to be you, but it's actually equally important to think about the people around you because you affect those people. So try to make that effect as positive as possible. And I mean, I am sure that most of you already are great role models, but if not, or if you don't really know how to act, here's my quick 5 ingredients recipe with things that I have appreciated from my role model developers. And the first thing is that they have always treated people with respect. I mean, you can have different opinions. You may end up in heated debates. You might think that someone is an idiot. They might even like JavaScript or prefer light mode in their IDE, but still treat them with respect. So accept people for who they are and treat people the way you expect others to treat you. And do you recognize this picture? It's from The Godfather, where Michael Corleone just had a meeting where his brother Fredo spoke against him in front of non-family members. So what Michael does is to wait until the meeting is over. And then he gives Fredo the feedback. Fredo, you're my older brother and I love you. But don't ever take sides with anyone against the family again, ever. So, should you act as a mafia boss? Of course not, but there's still one thing that I like about this. And that's actually not that Michael whacks Fredo later in the movie, but it is that Michael waits and gives Fredo the feedback in a small, safe environment where Fredo doesn't need to lose his face in front of a lot of other people. So that's the second thing that I have appreciated. My role models, they have always been generous by praising people in public. But if they had needed to criticize someone or give constructive feedback, they have done it in small, safe environments. And my role models, they have also always done their best, all the time. I mean, that might sound hard, but I don't say that you need to be the best. You don't even need to be like technical brilliant, but please try to do your best and continuously seek to enlarge yourself. So keep a positive attitude, live as you learn, and lead by example without being fake, and don't show off, but just try to do your best. And they have also shared their knowledge for free. And this is extremely valuable for your surroundings, but it's also very self-rewarding, because when you share your knowledge with others, you usually learn as much yourself as the other people do. So, and if you start learning Sorry, if you start sharing your knowledge with others, they will share their knowledge with you. It will go both ways. So share then your knowledge. That was the fourth ingredient in my recipe. And the last thing is probably the hardest one for a few of you. But most of us have 2 ears, but only 1 mouth. Take that as a hint and listen a lot, at least twice as much as you speak. But is it really possible to always act as a role model? Or is it okay to sometimes have other motivations in life apart from becoming that super sharp developer that people look up to? So earlier I mentioned my disastrous interview with Google, and I can imagine that most of you are contacted by recruiters sometime. And today those recruiters, they mainly hunt for the passionate developers who code 24/7, who speak Swift, Kotlin, Rust and Lead fluently, developers who stand in the spotlight and are worshipped by the masses, the superstars of the 21st century. But what about the rest of us? Are we just leftovers, like sad people who try to fool those recruiters, just to get a job so we can put some food on the table? Well, it's time to meet the mediocre developer who is also contacted by those recruiters.
Are you our next rockstar developer?
No.
Could you please provide us with your latest hobby projects on GitHub?
No.
In the hunt for a new ninja developer, is it you?
No.
What is the link to your blog posts?
Stop! I just want to code at work, go home, play with the kids, eat some chips and fall asleep on the sofa watching Dr. Phil. So have you felt the same way? Maybe you got those questions. Maybe you felt the pressure from the surroundings that you need to be this superhuman, at least if you're a software developer. And just to get a grip of the audience here, who is actually a developer in the room? Please raise your hand and keep them up. It's more or less the whole room. Please keep your hand up. But take down your hand if and only if you think that you are a crappy developer. If not, keep your hand up. And also take down your hand if you're a pragmatic programmer. You learn a new programming language each year, you read a book a month, you invest regularly in your knowledge portfolio. And also, if you think that you are an above average developer, then you can take down your hand as well. So we have still quite a lot of developers left. Decent programmers without being fanatics. Welcome. This part is especially for you. But of course the rest of you may listen in as well, because this is a mediocre developer tribute. So let us do a spin back to those recruiters hunting for the aces. What are they after? What do they want? What is ninja developers? Is it like sneaky little programmers hiding in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to jump out and add some code when no one notices? Sorry, we use Git. We will see that you've been here, even if you use stealth mode. And before the corner down there with the ninja developers, yes, of course I recognize you. Before they start throwing rotten tomatoes and self-injected shell script at me, of course I don't hate you. Yes, you are amazing, you are valuable, but you get so much praise anyway. That is not your 10 minutes of fame. Let's move on to the rock stars instead. What is this? Is it like hairy dudes trashing up hotel rooms, drinking whiskey, snorting cocaine? Not sure I would trust that code anyway. Or are they actually talking about the programming language Rockstar, developed some years ago by our own man in the hat, Dylan Beatty? So Rockstar is a computer programming language designed for creating programs that are also hair metal power ballads. So this, for instance, it may look like a song or a poem, but it's actually source code. It's a FizzBuzz program written in Rockstar. And I will not read the whole thing, but just listen to this part. Desire is a love-struck lady killer. My world is nothing. Fire is ice. Hate is water. This is deep. This is beautiful. But, of course, I am ranting here. We all know what the recruiters are after. They are looking for the top-notch developers, for the best of the best. But is that always what your company need? Or could a mediocre developer sometimes be just as good, or even better, even in the long run? So I will come back to that question in just a second. First, I think we need to define what a mediocre developer actually is. So the English Oxford Dictionary, it explains mediocre as not very good, of only average standard, while the Cambridge Dictionary defines it as acceptable, but not good. So based on that, I would define a mediocre developer as a developer of acceptable or average standard. So how can this be better than one of those first-class ace programmers? Well, I will try to answer that question by introducing you to a few friends and ex-colleagues of mine. So we can call this guy Ken, because that is actually his name. And by the way, Ken's from Denmark, and I worked together with Ken at one of our big banks. And Ken, he's good at writing code. Well, of course not as good as you ninjas in the corner, but he gets the job done. And Ken, he's great when it comes to securities. And he loves Christmas trees. I mean, he even grows his own. And Ken, he has worked at that bank for almost 29 years. And I'm quite sure that his code has transferred quite a lot of your money. And this is another ex-colleague of mine. Let's call her Anna. And I met Anna at one of our government agencies where she was a system developer. And Anna, she's really good when it comes to like design and architecture. But still, I think she's even sharper as a baller. And Anna, she's worked for that government agency for more than 15 years. And if we were back in Sweden, I would be sure that everyone in the room would use her programs every year. And the third friend I would like to introduce you to is Roger. So Roger, he works in the medtech industry, and he has a domain knowledge that is insane. I mean, I have seen him explain medical stuff to doctors. I mean, he knows his programming as well, but probably not as good as he is at skiing. And Roger, he has worked with that same product since 1990. That is 35 years. And I can assure you that his code has saved the life of someone you know. And these three, they have a few things in common. I mean, they have made a huge impact for their employers for so many years. And they are easy to work with. They share their knowledge for free. They do their job. And they never going to give you up. And they never going to let you down. And they never going to run around and desert you. But they also value other things in life apart from a job and programming. And they probably get less connection invites together in a year at LinkedIn than most of you get invites each month. And I can bet my next salary that a recruiter wouldn't call them like ace, ninja, or rockstar. And I don't think that any of them sleeps with a pragmatic programmer under the pillow. So about the pragmatic programmer, I mean, that is an amazing book. It actually changed my career, but it also puts a lot of pressure on us developers. Like, we should always keep up, be a little bit more than the average, and constantly learn new things. But that doesn't work for the mediocre developer, right? Because we want to watch Dr. Phil in our spare time, not getting frustrated trying to learn Haskell. So that's why I believe that all of you should have the time to develop your skills at the job within that regular 40-hour week. I mean, I don't think that, for instance, a medical doctor would get the same questions during a job interview like, could you please provide us with a few clips of your hobby surgeries? I mean, we developers, we shouldn't have that pressure on us either. So if your employer wants you to do a good job, they should also make sure that they give you the possibility to evolve yourself at work. But that was a sidetrack. Back to my friends. I actually got a fourth friend. And let's call him John Doe, because that is obviously not his name. And John, he probably ticks all the boxes for being a true rockstar developer. I mean, he is brilliant. And we worked together at the same company. But John left because he got bored. I mean, programming Java, that's so 2004. And that's the most of his career. I mean, he takes a job, and he makes a great impact for 12 months. And then he gets bored, so he gets home, and he creates a new programming language. But then he runs out of money, so he takes a new job where he makes a great impact for like 12 months. It's an infinite loop. And maybe my friend John is not like all you great ace programmers out there, but I still haven't met one single rockstar ninja developer who has contributed half as much to a company in the long run. So the next time you are looking for a new developer at your company, think about it. What do you need? Who will benefit your company most in the long run? Is it if you manage to tangle my friend John for the next 12 months? Or should you rather aim at finding the next Ken, Anna, or Roger? Well, I don't think that we have a right or wrong answer here, but just a small hint that the mediocre developer might be exactly what your company needs from time to time. So please, don't cut them out of the process just because they don't aim for being in the spotlight. So I would actually like to end this talk by giving them exactly this spotlight. So may I ask all of you with the ability to stand up, to get up on your feet, and give a big round of applause. I mean, not for me, not for this talk, but for all the Ken, Anna, and Rogers out there, for all the average developers, the mediocre ones, because they are true heroes that runs the software industry, and now is their time to shine. Thank you. If you have comments, questions, just grab me, drop me a mail, connect me to LinkedIn. Thank you.